GMGP. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good people. It is me, JRich, rolling solo today. Ray had to take one of the kiddos to the doctor, but I knew that the people did not want to wait for the takes on Justin Fields, Jaylen Waddle, and so much more. We have a lot to get to in this show, so I'm very happy to be doing this for the people. Y'all have been asking for these solo shows, and the solo JRich show is finally back. So let's see who's in the building. GMGP to everybody. I see Cozy Jackson in the building here. I see Adam back after the show he missed just a few days ago. Bindles is saying GMGP. Lots of people are here and ready. You know, this show's been doing great. You guys have been so supportive, and we are so thankful for that. But I thought, what's a better way to kill the momentum than with a JRich solo? So I hope you all are excited. I hope you all are happy, because I am happy to be here. I'm happy to be here with the people. But there is tons of news to get to, and I think a lot of people want to hear some opinions on it. So I want to hear from you guys. I want to hear from you guys, especially towards the end of the show. We will get to some of your questions and things you want to talk about once I get through all the news, once I get through some of the stuff that's been going on in the NFL. But let's start with Team USA. No, I'm just kidding. We're not going to do that. Team USA lost. They suck. We will move on because we do have some big news in the NFL. Justin Fields was traded from the New York Jets to the Kansas City Chiefs. Justin Fields, another year, another new team. Some people here say I'm a Justin Fields hater. Guess what? That's fine by me. I told y'all in Chicago. I told y'all in Pittsburgh. I told y'all especially in New York. But now, Justin Fields to the Kansas City Chiefs. What does this mean for the Chiefs? What does this mean for Justin Fields? And what does this mean potentially for Patrick Mahomes as well? We know he's trying to come back from his injury. The Chiefs obviously will need a backup quarterback. Justin Fields apparently had a market. The Jets are eating the majority of his salary, which is over, I think it's $18 or $20 million guaranteed this season. Jets are eating that, but they did get a 6th round pick for it. But what does this mean for the Chiefs? What do you guys think this means, especially for Mahomes? Because, I mean, the general thought was he may come back at some point during the season. We knew he'd come back eventually. You know, I talked about maybe he misses a month this season, and I think they'd be able to withstand that as far as still making the playoffs potentially. But when you look right now at the state of the quarterback position in Kansas City, last season was really the point where you said, okay, we know that backup quarterback is extremely important regardless of the team you are. Whether you have Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, you need to have a competent backup quarterback, because we saw towards the end of the year the Chiefs were not competitive. Without Mahomes, they weren't competitive. Now, I'm not here to say they're going to be competitive with Justin Fields, but this is definitely a much more capable quarterback than they've had as Mahomes is back over the past. He's better than Minshew. He's better than Olajuwon or whoever was playing backup, who was the 3rd string last year. And I think the other side of it is like, what does it mean for Justin Fields? Justin Fields, at this point, we might as well call him a journeyman. He's been trying to find his way in the NFL. He's been extremely inconsistent as a passer. He's a dynamic rusher. And is there potential for Kansas City to use him as a dynamic rusher, even in their offense with Mahomes fully healthy? I think there is possibilities for that. As a short yardage, goal line, you know, like a high leverage but short yardage type of quarterback, I think that could be possible because they don't want Mahomes running those plays. But then on the field side of it, look at it like this. We know Mahomes is going to be coming back, or at least trying to come back as soon as he can, hopefully for week 1, but we'll see what his timeline looks like kind of as the offseason progresses. Justin Fields now is going to be in this Kansas City offense under Andy Reid, learning from Eric Bieniemy and all the staff they have there, and probably taking the majority of first-team reps with the Chiefs for the majority of the offseason. Now, Mahomes will come back eventually, but I think for now, the way we look at it, we say, okay, we have Fields who struggled pretty much everywhere he's been, outside of, a few seasons that were okay here or there. We know the Jets wasn't going to work out. They brought in Geno Smith. And, in my opinion, they probably should have kept Fields because, what is Geno exactly? But that's besides the other point. when you talk about Fields in Kansas City, I think it's a chance for him to learn under a play caller and in a regime where the pressure is really low. He's not expected to be anything. He's not expected to start, not expected to win games, and more importantly, it's kind of like the other quarterbacks we've seen over the years where they go to a few different spots, learn from those guys, and maybe try to build their stock back up, right? Malik Willis just got $45 million from the Miami Dolphins, and he threw, 20 passes in the time that he was at Green Bay. And I'm not to say it's going to happen for Justin Fields because it's probably not going to happen. But even with that, it's an opportunity for him to get practice reps, learn a new system, play, especially get those first team reps with the Chiefs, and maybe potentially have a role within this offense, and maybe, just maybe, even start out the gate for the Chiefs when Mahomes still needs to be nursing that injury. And then, Cole World's saying it right here, AR, and he's meaning Anthony Richardson, and the Colts could do or should do something similar, and I completely agree. The question is, where is that spot, right? Fields now goes from the Jets. I believe they traded a 6th round pick, and so we'll scroll up here because the Jets now, they have their own first. They have the Colts first. They have the Cowboys or Packers first, whichever is higher. Their own pick, or own 2nd round pick, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and then they have 3 6th round picks. These are all in 2027. So 3 2027 first round picks now for the Jets. Obviously, they are loading up. We know that they are not going to be competitive this year. They got Frank Reich as their OC. We know that Geno Smith is probably not the answer at quarterback, but we'll see what Aaron Glenn can do. I'm cautiously optimistic. Trading Fields seemed like a necessary move they had to make. They brought in Geno, so because of that, they weren't going to use Fields. You're able to get a 6th round pick for him, even with eating his salary. You might as well do that, and it works for Fields. New environment, should get a lot of the first team reps. I think he's potentially, going to be able to build himself back up just a little bit, but we'll see where this ultimately goes. Patrick is saying JRich to the Packers. I mean, you look at what they just did with Malik Willis. Why not? Right? If you're Matt LaFleur, you're now looking for your next probably reclamation project backup quarterback. I mean, I don't know if they're going to get a 3rd round comp pick for losing Malik Willis, but probably at least a 4th rounder. Like, these are the type of things that I think smart organizations do, right? And this is where, you look to the LA Rams and the San Francisco 49ers, and the reason why I bring them up is because they're consistently getting 3rd, 4th round compensation picks because they're losing coaches, right? When your OC or your play caller gets hired to another team, you get compensation as a result. And when you're constantly churning those guys out, it's no different talking about the quarterbacks, right? You bring in Malik Willis for cheap, you develop him, he gets a contract somewhere else, and you're going to get compensation for the development of that player as a result. And not to say that's what the Chiefs are doing here. I kind of would be surprised if that happened. But when you talk about Anthony Richardson, like Patrick was, there is a world where maybe the Packers or another team like this brings in a quarterback, develops him over a couple years, and tries to turn him into something in the future. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I think especially with the climate that quarterback is right now, that's actually a pretty good idea because, I mean, you look to the incoming quarterbacks this year, it's Fernando Mendoza, and that's it. Like next year, it projects to be really, really good, but how many high-end first-round, top-of-the-first quarterbacks are there? And then you look to all the quarterback-needy teams, there's a ton of them. And there simply is not enough supply right now at quarterback to go around. And I think that's where taking on some of these developmental players, potentially getting supplemental picks as a result, like all those things can be very beneficial for these franchises. So I hope it works out for Fields. I really, really do. I hope we can see him start, a week or two. Obviously, the schedule's not out yet, so we don't know who the Chiefs' first game is, but with it being the Chiefs, it will probably be a marquee matchup. Overall, just kind of the way it is. But unless, because of the Mahomes injury, they may backload the schedule, maybe they get a couple cupcakes early and Fields can maybe start some of those games and the Chiefs can still start on a good foot. I see Ricardo's here, a late GMGP to everybody. For anyone who missed the open, Ray is out today, so I am rolling solo. And I thought we would talk some of the fun news that's been going on in the NFL over the last couple days. Didn't want to keep y'all waiting for Monday for that because there was some fun stuff that has dropped. But let's keep scrolling, Chef Raptors Twitter because there was some other interesting news. I mean, Darius Slay announced his retirement. Shout out to Big Play Slay, obviously Eagles legend, right? Huge for them when it comes to winning Super Bowl. Patriots signed some linebacker. Van Jefferson, let's go. Signing to the Washington Commanders. Nothing major there. And then you have the biggest piece of news that I want to talk about from a multitude of fronts. Jaylen Waddle traded to the Denver Broncos for a first-round pick, which is 30th overall, and then coming back, I believe, was a fourth-round pick for the Denver Broncos as well, right? So there's a few small picks that were traded in there, but for the most part, the big news is Jaylen Waddle being traded to the Denver Broncos. For anyone who missed it during the season, Jaylen Waddle was a player who almost got traded to the Buffalo Bills. The Bills obviously ended up trading for DJ Moore, and hopefully they're happy with that, but they didn't want to give up their 26th first. They were willing to give up the 27th first, which is interesting given the fact that we know, what we know, or at least what we project from the 2027 class versus the 26th class. He ends up in Denver. So the 30th overall pick is now with the Miami Dolphins, and Jaylen Waddle is on the Denver Broncos. Courtland Sutton, Jaylen Waddle, what does it mean for Marvin Mims, Pat Bryant, who was a third-round pick, Lil Jordan Humphrey? Like, we've been consistently looking for a guy who can work opposite of Courtland Sutton. I think you look to the Patriots game as a perfect example. Some of the other games that Denver played that were tight. If it wasn't Courtland Sutton, there wasn't always another option. Marvin Mims had some massive games. Troy Franklin has hit opportunities as well, but there wasn't really a number two option when it came to this Denver offense for Bo Nix. Now they have that. They have Jaylen Waddle. And what does this mean for Denver? Because, Ray and I were talking about the Baltimore Ravens a few shows ago, and I was talking about kind of where they sit within the AFC, and kind of I looked at them and I say they could win the AFC North, but I'm not sure how high they could go, and I believe I had Denver as my number one team in the AFC going into next season. Now, they're obviously going to have a much tougher schedule. They're going to have a number one seed type schedule, which will be much more difficult than they were playing in years past. But even with that, they did lose Dre Greenlaw, who went back to San Francisco. But offensively, this is where the consistency that or the inconsistencies or lack thereof we've seen from Bo Nix, hopefully should get ironed out a little bit. We know they're still looking for another running back because Sean Payton is just never satisfied with that backfield. RJ Harvey will be featured and be a big piece of the offense. But now you have Courtland Sutton, Jaylen Waddle, and all these auxiliary pieces in Pat Bryant, Troy Franklin, Marvin Mims, Lil Jordan Humphrey, and Michael Bandy to help make Bo Nix an even better quarterback. So when you talk about the Broncos right now, I do think there's a world where they should still be favorites or close to it because, you look to the Buffalo Bills. Bring in DJ Moore, fine addition. Does it make their team significantly better? Not necessarily. I like what they did on defense, kind of bringing in some players there, but I don't know if their team is drastically improved from what it was last season. Getting a player like Jaylen Waddle completely changes the way the Denver plays. All of those deep balls that, Marvin Mims might drop or Troy Franklin might drop, Jaylen Waddle is a player that can actually go out and make some of those plays. That's why he was drafted higher than all these guys. That's why he's been a dynamic playmaker in the NFL for years. And I think the other side of it is we've seen the way that Peyton likes to use some of these speedy receivers. There may be some jet sweep opportunities. There may be some reverses that are opportunities for Jaylen Waddle as well. And so it may not just be the deep game. It may also be the short and intermediate that Waddle can really thrive in this Sean Payton offense. So this is very, very big when you talk about the AFC, who's a contender, how does it change this team as a whole. I think Denver is poised for a lot of good stuff this year. So I'm curious what you guys think of that. Adam is saying that he wants to see Waddle play the CD role outside and the slot. I mean, we know the way that Courtland Sutton is utilized pretty much only outside. He does play in the slot a little bit. Waddle will probably play, again, more of the Z, that movement role, and be more in the slot. He'll play some outside. He'll run some deep routes, of course. He always does. But I think the bigger part for me is that this elevates this Broncos offense. It should hopefully iron out some of the inconsistencies we've seen over the last few years. And Bo Nix going into his third year, I do think there's a lot of potential here for this offense. So I love this trade for the Denver Broncos. I love this trade for the Miami Dolphins. But getting into the Miami side of it all is where I'm not going to say I have some questions, But definitely with everything that's going on in Miami and bring in Malik Willis and all these various things, like, look at what they have right now. You just gave Malik Willis a 3-year contract, $45 million guaranteed. So when exactly is he supposed to develop and become a better quarterback when this is who he's working with? The Dolphins wide receiver room, which once featured Tyreek Hill and Jaylen Waddle, now looks like this. Tutu Atwell, fine player. Jalen Tolbert, fine player. Terrace Marshall Jr., didn't even know he was still in the league. Malik Washington, probably could be the featured receiver here, so I'd be maybe a little interested in him. Taj Washington, Theo Weiss Jr., and A.J. Henning. And of course, they still have Devon Achane. But when Ray asked me last week where I'm at with Malik Willis, my biggest problem is that who is he going to be working with? He had Jaylen Waddle at the time. I said, I'm still a little bit nervous about this offense. I'm still not sure if the right people are in charge to get the most, or at least get something out of Malik Willis that they were expecting when they signed him. And then they go and trade his number 1 wide receiver. Now, let's not hate on Miami too much here, because I will say there's always a chance they draft a receiver at 30. Now, do I think that you're going to get the same type of receiver at 30 that you probably need to replace or at least supplement the loss of Jaylen Waddle? I don't necessarily think so, but maybe the plan is to get that receiver. What is it? I think at 13 is what they have right now. So their other pick is 11, sorry. So maybe there's an opportunity for them at 11. It's kind of seemed like they're going a different direction. I believe they brought in Mansour Delane. Them and the Saints also brought in Mansour Delane over the next couple of days for 30 visits. So again, they're potentially looking at defense. But like, this is my biggest problem with Miami right now, is they don't have any receivers. And maybe they're tanking for 2027, but if you're tanking for 2027, why are you bringing in Malik Willis? That's the number one question. So now, right, when you look to their draft, I think, Ari tweeted this out. They have these picks in the 26th draft. They have 11, 30, 43, 75, 87, 90, 94. So you talk about just 6 top 100 picks for the Miami Dolphins in 2026. 6 of them. And so you have to imagine some receivers will be taken here. But even with that, do I believe they're going to make the right selections at the right times? That's the biggest problem here, is that for me, I like Malik Willis. I want to see what he can do. But you look to what this Dolphins team is, and there just isn't a whole lot to say that you should be excited. Because look at this right here. The dead money for the season is now over $175 million for the Miami Dolphins. Wow. Tua, Tyreek, Waddle, Ramsey, Minka, Chubb, Armstead, Daniels. They even got Zach Wilson, Alec Ingold, John Smith. I mean, this is like, I understand why they're doing it, because you have to reset your franchise. Like, we knew that Tua was not the answer, but even with that, like, you can't possibly believe that this is the right decision. And Patrick said it isn't 58% of their cap dead money now. It's like, yes, for sure. And then Daniel Perry's asking, could Miami have another top pick if they traded Achane? Well, yes, that's the other side of it, right? It is when you talk about them, and we'll kind of go through the list in terms of the news and when it happened. But they already said they're not trading Achane. And it's like, maybe it's because they're holding out for a first, and the first isn't available right now. But like, why on earth would you not entertain trading Devon Achane? You'll probably get at least 2 seconds for him, maybe a second and a first next year. Again, I don't know if teams would be willing to pay that first round price, which it seems like is at least they're looking for Devon Achane. But you have to entertain it. You have to. You have no team. You have no roster. You have no hope. We know you're tanking. We know you're trying to reconfigure your cap situation. We know the moves you're trying to make. And I do agree with trading Waddle to some extent, because you're getting an asset that works better for your timeline. You know, I feel like I talk about this a lot on this show. I talk about teams that make the wrong decisions because it doesn't make sense for their timeline, right? And when you look to what Miami's doing, cutting Tua, getting rid of Tyreek Hill, trading Jaylen Waddle for a first, like, all of that makes a ton of sense. But the bigger problem is when you get into signing Malik Willis, it's like, you need a quarterback, but why are you even wasting that money? And if you're going to trade Waddle, why also do something like stretch Tua's cap? Like, maybe it's not realistic to take Tua's entire dead cap hit in one season, but when you're going to the level of tanking that it does seem like potentially the Dolphins are going to outside of signing Willis, why not just take all that money at once? And Jason's saying worth trying a hard reset. And like, just admit it. Like, we are in a terrible cap situation. We need to reconfigure this roster from the ground up. We got rid of everybody except for Devon Achane, apparently. And we decided we are going to not get rid of everybody and reconfigure the cap all at once. We're going to take it. We're going to spread some of it. We're going to move things around. We're going to sign a quarterback. We're probably going to draft a receiver because we still need receivers. It's just very interesting the way they're going about this. But let's move forward because I think we already hit a lot of that. Waddle to Denver. Great for Denver. Great for Bo Nix. Great for the offense. I think it puts them in a great position to be one of the top teams in the AFC. And it's great for Miami. They get their first round pick. They have number 30 overall, along with number 11 in the 2026 NFL draft. And they have some supplementary picks as well. So we can see what they decide to do. And when we get into the Kiper mock later, we'll see what Kiper decides to do with that Miami pick because he updated his mock draft following that trade. Now, here's a piece of news that I do think is a little bit interesting. The Eagles agreed to a one-year deal with Hollywood Brown. Hollywood Brown has been a fine receiver over the years. Is he an upgrade over Jahan Dotson? Potentially, right? He's dynamic. He's shifty. He had some good years in Baltimore. He had a good opportunity in Kansas City and showed a little bit. I think we hoped for a little bit more from Hollywood Brown. Injuries have always been a big issue for him over the years, but I mean, I like Hollywood Brown in Philly. I think that he provides a weapon that they don't necessarily have and does some different things offensively. We know what A.J. Brown can do, assuming he's still going to be there because, A.J. Brown could always get traded. We know who Devontae Smith is. If A.J. Brown gets traded, Devontae Smith's the dude, and then they have Hollywood as another option with Jahan Dotson. They brought back Dallas Goedert, which I don't know if we talked about that or not. They finally were able to work it out with Goedert. After extending the deadline over and over and over, Goedert is back after taking a pay cut for, I believe, like $7 million. And we may get to that. So now you have an offense in Philly. New OC, Sean Mannion, right, coming over from Green Bay. We'll see what he decides to do. Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, A.J. Brown for now, Devontae Smith, Jahan Dotson, Dallas Goedert, Hollywood Brown. A lot of good players. A lot of good players to work with. A lot of different skill sets. I really like the Eagles bringing in Hollywood Brown. Assuming he's healthy, he's just another player that can stretch the field vertically, can work in the short and intermediate game. He may be injured from time to time, but I really do like this signing for the Eagles. I think it's a great depth signing. He obviously is looking for some opportunity, and I think it's a great spot for Hollywood Brown. Free agent tackle Austin Ekeler reached an agreement with the Tennessee Titans. So the Titans are bringing in a tackle to help with Cam Ward. David Njoku visiting with the Baltimore Ravens. I don't think we got official news on David Njoku yet, but the Baltimore Ravens would be very interesting after the loss of Isaiah Likely. Panthers signed a defensive lineman. And yeah, this is the news we're talking about earlier. Teams that have called the Miami Dolphins to inquire about trading for Pro Bowl running back Devon Achane have been told he is not available. Now, does that mean he's actually not available, or does that mean that teams are not willing to meet their asking price? I'm not sure. But it's definitely interesting to see what they decide to do. Adam's saying, interesting. Guess to help take the top off the field to allow Smith and A.J. Brown to eat over the middle to create added open space. Yeah, he's talking about the Eagles and Hollywood Brown. I agree. I think it's a pretty good signing. It's a good opportunity. I think Hollywood Brown could be a good fit based off the players they have and the way they probably operate the offense, especially coming from Green Bay, where they had tons of different receivers, different archetypes. I do think added Hollywood Brown to the mix certainly couldn't hurt your offense as a whole. Let's keep going. We have the Masters dinner from Rory McIlroy. That should be great. Christian Kirk signing with the 49ers. That is another piece of news that I did not expect. So now we have a 49ers offense that's looking a little bit stronger, right? We are worried about Brock Purdy, and we weren't sure what he was going to have to work with because we know that George Kittle is hurt. We do not expect Brandon Ayuk to be back. And we're still trying to figure out who those last couple pieces they decided to bring in are. So I'm just pulling up the depth chart now, right? We know they brought in Mike Evans. We know they have Ricky Pearsall, assuming he's healthy. And then you have Christian Kirk working the slot. It's a pretty competent wide receiver room. It's not the sexiest. It's not the one that you'd say, oh yeah, we're super excited for everything we're seeing here in San Francisco, but this can work, right? This can work. Christian Kirk, for everything you think he's not, he is a fine receiver, especially in the slot. And I think that Shanahan will find creative ways to utilize him within the offense. You look at Pearsall, what he does well. He'd be great in the short, intermediate, and can get deep as well. We know Mike Evans can work all over the field. And then you have Christian Kirk that can operate probably more in that short, change moving type of area. And I really, really like it for them. I think he's a great signing. Not a spot where I expected him to go, but a team that could use a dynamic slot. We know they have Tonches. Kittle will probably be back towards the end of the season if he comes back during the season. Still waiting to see exactly where he's at, obviously, in his recovery. And then as well, with that, you have the 49ers and their offensive line and kind of how they all rework that. I still believe there is a bit of tension with what happens with Trent Williams, but I think the signing of Christian Kirk is a very good one for the 49ers. Not one I expected. Obviously, he's a little bit older, but I do think there is plenty here for him. And then, yeah, the official trade here for the Dolphins was the 26th first-round pick, third overall, a 26th third-round pick, a fourth-round pick from the Broncos in exchange for Jaylen Waddle and a fourth-round pick. Other piece of news, Philly back at it again, trading for Andy Dalton. I did not see this at all. I guess they want a veteran behind Jalen Hurts. I don't know what is going on with this trade. Why you have to trade for Andy Dalton is beyond me. I guess that Carolina didn't need him anymore. They said, you know what, Bryce? You've learned everything you need to learn from Andy Dalton. We'll trade him to Philly, and Philly will take that, or they'll take that 7th round pick in exchange for Andy Dalton. Very, very interesting to see Dalton get traded. Kind of random, but we will take it. Colts are signing Nick Westbrook-Akine, who was cut by the Dolphins. We kind of talked about that a little bit. And let's see what else we got here. Because, oh yeah, T.Y. Hilton retiring. That was kind of cool. You know, T.Y. Hilton was a great receiver for many years in the Colts. I didn't even know that he hadn't retired yet, to be honest. But shout out T.Y. Hilton. We give him an air horn here because we do like ourselves some T.Y. Hilton. He was a great receiver in his time. I believe he's third all time in Colts receiving yards, only behind Reggie Wayne and Marvin Harrison. So say what you want about T.Y. Hilton, but very productive in his day. Adam saying, threw me off. I like our backup Tanner McKee. Adam, you can like Tanner McKee all you want, but he is, I'm gonna be honest, man, he's not that good. I would much rather have Andy Dalton probably than Tanner McKee personally, but we will keep moving forward. These are the official trade details for, the Justin Fields trade. We don't need to talk about that. Justin Fields for a 6th round pick, but I mean, they're eating all that dead money. The Bills' former defensive end AJ Epinesa is signing a $5 million deal with the Cleveland Browns. He'll be working opposite of Myles Garrett. So really like that for him. Can't believe the Bills couldn't bring him back. He must have really not liked it in Buffalo. And then the other big piece of news here, that whether you saw it or not, is we have a proposal by the Cleveland Browns that will potentially allow NFL teams to trade draft picks 5 years in advance. 5, right? So currently, you can only trade, I believe, 3 years in advance in terms of NFL teams and what picks they can trade. The Browns are proposing where you could trade up to 5 years of picks potentially in the NFL, to be working a little bit more like the NBA, where they can trade, way out there, 2031, 2032 type picks in order to acquire assets. I think that honestly would change so much when it comes to the NFL, because when you're talking about trading like those future first, it's one of the reasons obviously why you look to the Oklahoma City Thunder in the NBA, why they're so successful. They just tanked for years and years and years, accumulated all these first round picks to where even now when they're the NBA champions, they still have a shot of having a top 10 pick. Maybe it sounds like chaotic and it's not going to work in the NFL, but I think the crazy thing about it is that what would happen is it would create so many more trading opportunities for teams that at that point, you'd say it'd be good for the NFL because trades are good for the NFL. Just what we've seen right now in recent days, there's been a ton of trades in the NFL, big trades, small trades. Some are consequential, some aren't. But I do think that if you could trade more first round picks, it would kind of expose some of the good GMs from the bad GMs, the ones who have the foresight to say, we're going to, build for the future. We know that this draft class is loaded. We know that we can trade this player away for a pick, 3 years down the line, but it will be able to help us in the long run. Daniel Perry saying, terrible proposal. You will see teams in bad situations more frequently because they screw over the future GMs. And I do think this is a fair point. When you talk about trading first round picks and the turnover in the NFL, I believe this year was 10 new head coaches in the NFL. So when you talk about if you can trade draft picks 5 years in advance, the NFL is not so much like the NBA. They don't fire GMs as often, right? So if you trade a first round pick 5 years away, there's a pretty good chance in the NFL you're going to be fired. I would say, if I'm just guessing, I don't have the actual numbers on this, I would say that GMs are probably fired within their first 3 years at like a 30 to 40% rate. And I think the sad part is that when you're looking to some of these teams, if you're Howie Roseman, you can trade a pick 5 years from now, right? If you're John Lynch, John Lynch is kind of iffy, but you could probably trade a pick 5 years from now, right? If you're Les Snead, you can pick, you're going to trade a pick 5 years from now if you're Les Snead. But that's where I kind of agree and disagree with Daniel. I understand the player turnover side. I understand that, obviously coaches and GMs are fired very frequently. You may only have a year or two as a GM or a coach. Look at Tennessee. They've cleaned house like 3 times in the last they've cleaned house twice in the last 3 or 4 years. So it's going to happen where teams are going to make bad decisions. They're going to make bad trades and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, I don't think ownership is going to allow you to trade a pick 4 or 5 years down the line if you're on shaky ground already to begin with. Because while, yes, you may make a decent trade, you may be kind of in the middle, it could maybe push you over the edge. That's a different conversation than if you're Cleveland and, you're trading a pick 5 years down the line. But if you can accumulate, the Eagles pick 5 years from now or the Chiefs pick 5 years from now, that's actually a little bit enticing because we don't know what these teams are going to look like. They're good right now. They're top teams in the NFL. They have great rosters, great quarterbacks, great GMs, great everything. But a lot can change, and that's where I'm kind of for it because I'm for player movement. I'm for player trades. If you could trade picks 3 years, or 5 years down the line, AJ Brown would not be an Eagle. He just wouldn't. The Patriots would trade first round picks for the next 3 years if they could get them. Howie may want a first this year and a first next year, but it's like, hey, Howie, we'll just give you a first round pick in 28, 29, and 30. And he'll say, well, you're giving me 3 first round picks? Sure. Have AJ Brown. No problem. We'll eat that dead cap now and we'll recoup it 3 years down the line. So that's where I'm kind of for it because I think player movement is good. I think it's more exciting. I think giving teams more opportunities to acquire players to, really work within that window is exciting. So I do think it would be a lot of fun. Jason's saying the NBA has a rule on trading first round picks in consecutive years. Yeah, where you have to be like every other year. So I'd be curious how that would work for them and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of things that have to go into it. It's not just, blow all your first round picks. It would be something that comes into effect years down the line and all those various things. But just the thought of something like that, it is very, very exciting. So let's keep going to see. And that seems like that's about it when it comes to at least Schefter's Twitter and kind of the major news that's been going on. We did talk about the Waddle trade. We talked about Fields, talked about the new proposal of first round picks. Jorge, look at Jorge. Let's go. Jorge is here. Belated GMGP at the office today, dropping off a like and can't wait to catch up during lunch. Thank you for tapping in, Jorge. I appreciate it. I will be headed to break now. And when we come back, we will get into Mel Kiper Jr.'s mock draft. I haven't looked at it yet, so I haven't seen any of it. I will be reacting live with you guys, the people, and they did update it since the Jaylen Waddle trade to change some of those selections around. So hit the thumbs up button, drop me a like for the solo stream today on a Thursday. Subscribe if you haven't, and I will see you guys after the break. Welcome back to the show. It is Wake Up with Ray and just Jay today because Ray is out, but I appreciate everybody for tapping in, whether you showed up right at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time or you made it into the middle like Mega Ninja did. I appreciate you showing up, Mega Ninja, showing some love. I am very, very happy that everyone's here having fun. I had to do a solo stream. It's been a while and the people always tend to enjoy it. But without further ado, let's get into it. Of course I messed this up. I should have known. So let me fix this quickly. I was doing so good with the production side of it. And here we go. Now we're back. We have the Mel Kiper Jr. mock draft to review. I haven't looked at it, so we'll be reacting to it live together. And of course, if you are watching, the number 1 overall pick, Fernando Mendoza. Surprise, surprise. He is going to Las Vegas. He will be the number 1 overall pick. And most importantly, they have a quarterback. I think they have a quarterback. I'm excited for Mendoza. I think they're doing the right stuff around him. I think they're bolstering the offensive line. I think they have plenty of moves to make. I'm not so excited about the whole Crosby situation. It doesn't seem like they're going to trade him, which I kind of think is a mistake. But let's keep it moving. Mendoza, quarterback out of Indiana, to the Las Vegas Raiders at number 1. Rubio saying I should get some Ray Charles shades and wear them on my solos. I should. I don't have any nice shades though. That's the thing. I have like some basic Ray-Ban shades. It's just it ain't the same. I don't got the same type of class that old GQ's got, unfortunately. But let's keep it moving because at number 2, the New York Jets select outside linebacker Texas Tech David Bailey. I personally prefer David Bailey over Arvell Reese. But if I'm being honest, I do not believe that David Bailey will be drafted ahead of Arvell Reese. I think the New York Jets are going to take Arvell Reese. I think he's the better selection. I think he's got higher upside. I just like Bailey a bit more personally. But if you're the Jets and you have nothing and your team is dreadful, you should probably draft Arvell Reese. He's a little bit raw, but he's more athletic. He's a freak of nature. And if you can turn him into the edge rusher that his potential says he could be the top potential defensive player in this entire draft class. I do love Bailey a lot, so don't hate the pick right here at number 2 for the Jets, but I do think the pick will also be Arvell Reese. At number 3, we have the Arizona Cardinals taking Arvell Reese. Great selection here. There's been thought of offensive line here for the Cardinals. There's been thought that they may even potentially go with Jeremiah Love. I think getting a premier edge rusher, whether it's David Bailey or Arvell Reese, should be the priority. It doesn't seem right now like Caleb Downs is going to be going in the top 5. You know, he was once thought of as a top 5 pick. I put him in Arizona not too long ago. So I think having a leader on the back end for Arizona could drastically improve their defense. But getting Arvell Reese is no consolation at all. It will be a phenomenal pick, and he'll be a great player for the Cardinals. At number 4, the Tennessee Titans select Jeremiah Love. And this is interesting because this mock came out on Tuesday. It's Thursday now. And just, I believe it was yesterday, Adam Schefter was talking about it on his podcast, basically saying that he's not expecting Jeremiah Love to go to the Titans at 4. It makes you wonder. It's like, well, then what are the Titans targeting? Because if Schefter's saying he doesn't believe that Love's going to go at 4, and to expand on that, he said he doesn't believe he's going to go before pick 5. He said he's definitely an option for the Giants at 5. He's an option for the Commanders at 7. And then the other one was he wouldn't rule out the Chiefs taking him. Now, again, does Schefter know everything? Of course not. But it was interesting that he kind of scoffed at the fact that the Tennessee Titans may take Jeremiah Love. Does he have insider information? Maybe. But even with that, it's interesting that he doesn't believe Jeremiah Love is probably going to go in the top 4, but he said he's definitely in play at 5. I think if the Tennessee Titans did get Love, it'd be a great fit for the offense, great for Cam Ward. Daboll knows how to use a prolific running back. He used Saquon Barkley fairly effectively. So I'm very excited for what this could be. Now, it may not happen, but I think it'd be great for Cam Ward. It's just how do they fix that offensive line, and what else do they add offensively? Because Wan'Dale Robinson, Calvin Ridley, and Jeremiah Love, it's a fine tandem, but I don't know if I love it, and still they would have Tony Pollard as well. So we'll keep moving on. The New York Giants select Caleb Downs. So this is interesting because there's a lot of fear with Caleb Downs' physical and potential injuries and long-term ramifications of these injuries. So Caleb Downs at 5 is a great fit for the Giants. Again, that back-end presence that they desperately need in their secondary. The same things I was talking about with Arizona. I love this fit for Caleb Downs on the Giants, so I think it'd be a great selection there for them. Rubio's saying these teams aren't telling the insiders anything they don't want the public to know. And that's true. You know, it could also be smokescreen. Like it could be complete smokescreen, and the Titans don't want teams knowing that they're looking at Love and targeting Love. And so there's lots of factors that go into it. But I do believe that, you know, there's a reason why taking him that high doesn't make a lot of sense. I just don't think the Titans timeline makes a lot of sense to draft the Love, but maybe they decided to go that route. Daniel Perry is saying Titans should definitely take Love at 4. Backfield would be great. Open up space for the receivers, and you can still get a good wide receiver later. And that's absolutely true. Right? They could still take a receiver top of the second round. And I'm not even sure if they like Tate at 4, but maybe they do. But Caleb Downs at 5 to the New York Giants. Let's keep going down. The Cleveland Browns take who seems like could be the number 1 tackle on the board now, Monroe Freeling. Huge tackle out of Georgia. Had a great combine, looked great. Obviously, one of the few guys who actually tested up to the ideal size, length metrics. The 34 3/4 inch arms, huge advantage. You know, all the things we've heard about with the short arm tackles and all these various things. Monroe Freeling does seem like he's working his way potentially to being a top selection. Wasn't always there, but after the combine, it seems like this is becoming more and more popular. Monroe Freeling to Cleveland to secure their other tackle spot after they traded for Titus Howard. You see them talking about that. That's another great pick there. Washington Commanders. Sonny Styles Jr., Sonny Styles, because it's Lorenzo Styles Jr. is his brother. Sonny Styles, linebacker out of Ohio State. Love the pick here for Washington. They need defense. He would instantly be the linchpin of that defense. Now, the question here for me, and Sonny talked about this at the Combine, is would he play on the edge in this defense? Dan Quinn, still currently, obviously, the defensive coordinator and head coach of the Washington Commanders. He'll be calling the defense and game planning all of that. Very familiar with Micah Parsons. Now, Sonny Styles last year played in the middle, but his previous year at Ohio State, he played more on the edge. That's where he got his sack production. That's where you see, for those of you who watched the breakdown that Ray did on Sonny Styles, a lot of his sacks, pressures, and edge work was all from the previous season, 2024 year. Maybe, just maybe, there could be an opportunity for Sonny Styles to operate in that Micah Parsons type of role that he had in Dallas when Dan Quinn was there. With Sonny Styles, he obviously has the size, he has the athleticism, and he's a freak of nature. So I would not be shocked at all if they decided to do that, but I believe that Sonny did say that he's more than happy to play in the middle and be the leader, commander of that defense in the NFL as well, like he was his last year at Ohio State. Now, the New Orleans Saints at number 8, take the wide receiver 1 off of the board, Carnell Tate. What do the people think of Carnell Tate to the Saints? Now, for me, I kind of like it. He could be the outside threat, allow Olave to work a bit inside and out. We know that the wide receiver pedigree from Ohio State is great. I'm sure Kellen Moore would be more than happy to take Carnell Tate at number 8. I think that more importantly, the way that him and Olave could operate, it's a great weapon for Tyler Shuck. We know they brought in Travis Etienne to this offense. So they're slowly building things. Kelvin Banks last year, great left tackle for them. I think it'd be all really, really good for this team to get Carnell Tate here. What is Jason saying? Jason saying, didn't make sense for the Raiders to take Genty at 6 last year. Teams do things that don't make sense every year. And Patrick's saying, very true, Jason. Yeah, it's one of those things where you look to the Falcons and they took Bijan Robinson, I believe, at 8. Gibbs went at 10. And those two picks kind of worked out, especially for Gibbs. The Gibbs pick really, really worked out. But when you're a team as bad as the Raiders, taking a player like Ashton Genty as high as they did doesn't make a lot of sense. And I make the same parallels when you talk about fantasy football. Like, the last player you need on your team is a running back. And it's not to say that you can't take a running back, but like the missing piece to an offense is the running back. You need the offensive line, you need the quarterback, you need the receivers, you need the tight end. And once you have a very solid foundation, the running back is what takes you over the top. And so that's where I really love the Saints going wide receiver here. They can go defense, and there's just some great defensive players on the board. But Carnell Tate at 8 to the Saints. Love the fit. Love it for Tyler Shuck. Love it in the Kellen Moore offense. I think he'd be a great addition to this team. Phenomenal fit in New Orleans for Carnell Tate. The Kansas City Chiefs, they take Ruben Bain, the edge rusher out of Miami. Would be a great pick here for Kansas City to get Ruben Bain. I believe he's the edge that's going to fall. Some people think he could still be, in that top 5, 6, 7 range, but I think he's going to be the guy that falls. The arm length will be a concern for people. He is a phenomenal athlete. He is great against the run. He showed it week in and week out all throughout the college football playoff that he is a dynamic player that can cause havoc both off the edge and in the backfield in the run game. So it's still a great pick for Kansas City. They absolutely need an edge rusher, and I don't think taking a corner here makes sense if Ruben Bain is on the board. So great pick for Kansas City, taking Ruben Bain at 9. At number 10, the Cincinnati Bengals take Mansour Delane, cornerback out of LSU. Quite a few people's number 1 corner. So I think it'd be a good pick for Cincinnati. They need corners so bad. The edge is mostly gone at this point in terms of premier edge rushers that get drafted in this spot or projected in this spot. So it'd be a fine pick for the Bengals here. And then even the commentary, even with Boyamafa in the fold, the edge rush leaves a lot to be desired. But with Bain off the board, there isn't a pass rusher who fits value here. And that's kind of the key theme. It is if you go with Zion Young, Keldrick Falk, who definitely isn't going probably that high. And Akeem Mesidor is the one who's rising right now. A lot of people seem to be in the last couple days coming around to Mesidor. I'd say 15 to 20 range. There's been a couple people who's saying maybe even Dallas could take him at 12. I don't think that's going to happen, and we'll see what happens with this mock draft. But Mansour Delane to Cincinnati, great fit. They need defense badly. And with the update after the trade, at 11, the Miami Dolphins take my boy, Jordyn Tyson, out of Arizona State to Miami. It was originally Francis Muaga, but he switched it over to Jordyn Tyson. So like we talked about, with the Jaylen Waddle trade, does that change what the Miami Dolphins' plans were? We were looking at defense. We were looking potentially at offensive line. But now they have a desperate need at wide receiver. There should be at least one of Lemon, Tyson, Tate on the board at 11, the way it stands right now, the way I project it right now. Maybe that won't be the case come draft day, but Jordyn Tyson to Miami. I mean, he's the only guy there. But outside of that, Malik Willis, Bobby Slowick, I don't know, man. I don't know if I like it. I like Tyson a lot. Everyone knows I'm a big fan of Tyson, but Miami, pass, man. It's just not good. It's just not a good situation. I'd be curious what people think of it because quarterback play, question mark. Offense, question mark. Offensive line, question mark. I don't get it. Daniel Perry is saying, Dolphins trade away an oft-injured wide receiver to draft an oft-injured wide receiver. No bueno. But when Tyson's on the field, though, he's pretty damn good. Let's get to the Cowboys pick. Oh, thank God Ray's not here because he would be fuming. The Dallas Cowboys at 12 draft Jermod McCoy, cornerback out of Tennessee. Wow. Every time this pick comes around and the Cowboys take McCoy, Ray just hates it. He hates it. He does not want to see the Cowboys take McCoy at 12. McCoy doesn't come without questions. He tore his ACL in January 2025 and sat out the entire season, then didn't work out at the combine. So we haven't seen this guy play in over a year. We haven't seen him test. We haven't seen him do anything. But the Cowboys like to gamble. They like to take those injured players. Daniel Ferry's saying it. This is such a Dallas pick. This will 100% happen. This is what they do. I don't know why they do it, but they need corners desperately. Their corners are terrible. But even still, it is such a risky pick when you're already, even last year they drafted Siobhan Revel. Fine pick, but also coming off of injury. So I think at 12, it's too much of a risk for me, but maybe they decide to make that selection. At number 13, the Rams take Francis Mouaga. So there is not the Mekhi Lemon pick here at 13. It is Mouaga, O-tackle out of Miami. Protection for Matthew Stafford. Protection for Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams. Protection and help in the running game for Kyron Williams and Blake Corum. This is a selection that the Rams need to make. They don't need to take Mekhi Lemon. They just don't. They can if they want to, but they do not need to take Mekhi Lemon. I think with their now one pick in the first round, Mouaga is a great pick, great tackle to take here at 13. Will be great for them for as long as Matthew Stafford's there and hopefully beyond as well. At 14, the Baltimore Ravens, Spencer Fano. Wow, Spencer Fano, a little bit higher than we expect. Fano, another player who has the arm length concern, 32 and 1/8 inch arms, so he could slide inside. He also did say, I believe at the combine, that he is fine sliding all the way in or sliding inside to guard as well versus Will Campbell, who said he didn't want to do that, and that's fine. But Fano going to be, he's labeled as an offensive lineman. He could play tackle, probably would play guard and kind of fill in there in Baltimore. So I don't mind it at all. Fano will be a great pick, but I feel like if the Baltimore Ravens are going to take a player that projects to potentially be a guard anyways, might as well take Vega Ione because he's just going to be a guard and a very good one in the NFL. So I don't mind it one bit. C10 Wyatt saying, how does Mouaga fall all the way to 13? It's a good question. It's a good question. And a lot of teams could use offensive linemen, but it does seem like Monroe Freeling is bumped his way up to tackle 1. And for every reason, Mouaga's not going any higher than that. A lot of teams could use him, and I think that's the problem with offensive linemen in general, is that in mock drafts and stuff, they're just such unsexy picks that you don't necessarily want to always slot them in unless teams really need them. You just rather go with a more premium position there in those spots. But when it comes on draft day, teams know they need offensive linemen, and they may go a little bit higher than we expect. Wow, a bit of a surprise here. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers take Kenyon Sadiq, the fastest tight end in combine history. 4.39, a new weapon for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, because we know the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they need all the weapons they can handle. Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end out of Oregon. Now that Mike Evans is gone, they still got Emeka Egbuka, Chris Godwin, Jalen McMillan, and they re-signed Cade Otton. But guess what, ladies and gentlemen? They still need themselves some Kenyon Sadiq. I don't think fantasy people would be too enthusiastic about this spot because where does he fit into this offense exactly? That's definitely a big question. And Jason's already saying, wait till you see 16. Oh boy, now I'm excited. 16 coming up. The New York Jets. Who do they take? Oh man. Ty Simpson, quarterback out of Alabama. At 16, the future, dare I say, of the New York Jets, Ty Simpson. Oh my God, what is the rationale for taking Ty Simpson in the first round? Kiper said, the Jets don't have to draft a quarterback here. They traded for Geno Smith as a bridge option, and they have 3 first-round picks in 27 when the QB class should be a lot better. But this is a good range for Simpson. What? Okay, Kiper, this is not a good range for Simpson. I'm sorry, dude. Like, this is not... I would say, in my opinion, this is as high as Simpson will go in the draft. I don't believe he will be picked in the top 15. I don't believe any team is going to draft Simpson. Maybe Miami. And probably not them because they already signed Malik Willis. But like going through the list here, who is drafting Ty Simpson? Nobody. There is nobody here who has a need for Ty Simpson. So don't tell me this is a fine range. This is the very top of where Ty Simpson could possibly go, in my opinion. So what does this mean for the Jets? They got Geno, right? Is Geno going to start the whole season if they draft Simpson? Probably not. How do we feel about Simpson on the Jets? Offensive line is decent. It's better than it's been in recent years. They've drafted fairly well. They continue to improve it. Defense is awful. They have Garrett Wilson. They retained Breece Hall, at least for this season. But man, like Simpson's just not a very good quarterback. Like people always talk about, like the first 2 months of the season, Ty Simpson was so good. But like, okay, so then he played SEC teams when the SEC schedule started and he sucked. Playoffs was terrible. Like stop. I just don't think he's very good. Maybe he was injured and maybe he has more potential than this. But I don't think that the Jets should be looking to Ty Simpson and say, that's our guy. Wait till next year. You have the 3 first-round picks. There is no reason to draft Simpson. Go take a quarterback at the top of the first round. Next year, in 27, when there's probably at least 3 first-round quarterbacks that are good quarterbacks, teams are going to be interested in. And even if you don't get one of those guys, you can always trade out of the draft pick that you have because teams are going to want one of those picks. Busters is saying you don't take Simpson here if you're drafting a QB next year. Completely agree. Daniel's saying Jets are hearing rumblings. Other teams are interested in taking Simpson. Only problem, the other teams are talking about the 3rd round. Jets gonna Jets. Yeah, I hate it, man. I don't think it makes any sense. Don't like it at all. And especially for Simpson, who I think does need some time and needs some work. Like, I don't want him to go to a situation where it's the Jets, because he could be a fine NFL quarterback, but the Jet situation where he's going to be thrown into a bad spot with not the best weapons around him and just like not a stable franchise. It's just not a good look for Ty Simpson or for the Jets. Terrible pick here by Kiper. Caden Proctor to the Detroit Lions at 17. Great pick. They need offensive line badly, and I think that's a great pick there. Ray's boy, Dylan Thieneman to the Minnesota Vikings, safety out of Oregon. I do think Thieneman could go a little bit higher than this. I really, really do. I mean, the Vikings could use him badly. He's definitely past Emmanuel McNeil-Warren in terms of being the safety too after his testing at the combine. He's referencing, or Kiper's referencing Harrison Smith being 37 years old, and I don't think he's going to be playing this season, or at least I'm expecting him to retire. I believe at the end of last season, there was a lot of, saying his goodbyes and like potentially being his last year, all kind of stuff. So Thieneman, great fit in Minnesota, desperately need a safety, would be a great pick there. The Carolina Panthers, again, safety again, Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, great pick for them. They got their edge rusher, they got their linebacker, and then in the draft addressing safety position. So then they would have addressed all 3 levels at various points throughout the offseason, drastically improving their defense that was already improving at stages last year. So again, building on their strengths to make it even stronger going into the 2026 season. 3 safeties in the top 20. That is kind of crazy. We do not see that hardly ever in the NFL. Safeties get mocked very, very high, but tend to slip when it comes to actual draft day just because they're not premium positions. Now let's go to Dallas at 20. Where do the Cowboys go from here? C.J. Allen, the linebacker out of Georgia. They do need linebackers pretty badly at that. So C.J. Allen would be a good pick. A little bit high, in my opinion, for Allen. He's one of the better linebackers in the class, but I would probably rather just take a linebacker in the 2nd round than take a linebacker at 20. But fine pick. I'd probably go another direction if I was the Cowboys. Maybe even take a shot on a Keldrick Falk at 20 or a Mesidor at 20. Like, just get a more premium position that could impact you. And if you do hit, makes a bigger impact. But Allen is fine. I just don't like taking linebackers that high. Pittsburgh, 21. Take Vega Ione. Great pick here. Great for the rushing game. Great for whoever's playing quarterback. Just a phenomenal pick. He will be a great guard in the NFL for years to come. I'm surprised he doesn't get mocked higher simply because he's going to be a good guard. He was great at Penn State and will be a great guard at the NFL level as well. Kiper does mention this. The Steelers' quarterback situation is still a big question. Will it be Aaron Rodgers? Will another veteran step in, such as Kirk Cousins? Or maybe it's Will Howard. We'll see. But Vega Ione to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Great pick here for the Steelers. At 22, the Chargers take Peter Woods, D-tackle, out of Clemson. People who watch the show regularly, they know that I'm a big fan of Peter Woods. His testing was not great. He didn't run the 40 at his pro day. He only did a 10-yard split, basically. He's claiming a hamstring injury. Whatever. Was once the premier defensive tackle in this class coming into this season. People thought he could go top 5, top 10. Clemson obviously stunk it up all season, but people still do seem enthusiastic about what Peter Woods could be, although I would be surprised if he was the top defensive player from, or I guess defense or offense from Clemson, drafted in the 2026 NFL draft. But to the Chargers, great fit for this defense, and I think it'd be a great fit for Peter Woods to play with Harbaugh. So really like the fit there. The Philadelphia Eagles take Max, I'm not even trying to say his last name, the O tackle out of Arizona State, the guy who I believe allowed no pressures last season, 6'6", 321 pounds, and ran a 4.91. Very raw. A lot of good ability and could be a great tackle. We know that Philly does need some offensive line help, so I do like this pick quite a bit for Philadelphia. I think it'd be a fine addition to their offensive line. If they can coach him up, Sirianni kind of get in the lab with him, they could do some great things there. So I really like that pick for Philadelphia. The Cleveland Browns. Wow. The slide is finally over. The Cleveland Browns take Makai Lemon, the wide receiver out of USC. How do we feel about Lemon in Cleveland? How do we feel about Makai Lemon in Cleveland? Makai Lemon to the Cleveland Browns. Who's his quarterback? Shedeur Sanders? Is this, the next Zay Flowers potentially in the Todd Monken offense? Zay Flowers is pretty good this year. But Makai Lemon to Cleveland. You can't help but not like it. You can't help but not be enthused, especially with how badly people want him to go to the Rams. Like, it's just not a fan. It's fine. It's good for them. I mean, they're going to get rid of Judy eventually. Reba's saying it. Who's the QB though? That's the hard part. It's like, as much as I don't like Tyson going to Miami, Makai Lemon to Cleveland, he's the guy. He is the guy. Jimbo's saying Deshaun's new Will Fuller. Daniel's saying Tate, Lemon, Tyson based on the mock. So he likes it. So I guess Daniel's more in the opinion that he likes Lemon in Cleveland more than Tyson in Miami. That's fine. I mean, I like Malik Willis more than whoever is playing quarterback in Cleveland. I just do. So if you're kind of split that way, I personally prefer Tyson. I could definitely see the case for making Tate number one over Lemon and Tyson based off what happened in this mock. But Lemon to Cleveland is just not great. The Cleveland Browns take Zion Young, the edge out of Missouri. Good pick there. They need edge rushers. They only had 35 sacks last season and had one of the lowest pressure rates in the NFL at 28%, which was 29th. Montez Sweat has regressed drastically since they paid him all of that money. Surprise, surprise. But even with that, I do think that it'd be a fine pick here for the Browns to take Zion Young at 25. One of my favorite players in the draft at 26 goes to the Buffalo Bills, Avion Terrell. Avion Terrell, the brother of AJ Terrell, for those of you who are unfamiliar. The Bills desperately need corners. They drafted Maxwell Harrison last year, and so getting him and Terrell together on the field would be phenomenal. We saw how bad their corners played in Denver last season in the playoffs, and I mean beyond simply that game, but that one, it really stand out for sure. Getting Terrell would be a huge addition. Again, another player that was projected in the top 15 coming into the season. Clemson had a terrible year, and Terrell's draft stock took a hit as a result, but he's got the size, he's got the ability, and obviously his brother would be a great asset to help him acclimate to the NFL, and his brother as well is a great corner out in Atlanta. The San Francisco 49ers take Blake Miller, tackle, out of Clemson with their first round pick. We know there's the Trent Williams of it all and kind of what happens with him. So taking offensive tackle is a great pick here. Don't hate it at all for San Francisco. The Houston Texans take Christian Miller, DT out of Georgia. Have no clue if this guy's any good. I don't think I've ever seen Christian Miller mocked in the first round. But, I mean, why not? You got Will Anderson. You got Danielle Hunter. Draft a DT from Georgia. Doesn't seem like a bad pick at all, in my opinion. I kind of think they should go offense. Casey Concepcion is on the board. Denzel Boston, who, again, I don't think profiles based off what they need. And M. Lieber, too, is saying, wrong line, Houston, and I do agree. There's probably a couple offensive linemen that could be available here, but a lot of the good ones are already gone, to be fair. So defensive tackle to Georgia, Christian Miller to the Houston Texans at 28, and the Kansas City Chiefs take Brandon Cece, the cornerback out of South Carolina. I have seen a lot of hype about Cece. I do think he could be an option here for Kansas City. We know they need to take a corner after they traded away Trent McDuffie, so corner is definitely in play for them. If Avion Terrell is available, I do believe that will be the pick, but he is not. So Brandon Cece, cornerback out of South Carolina, is the pick for the Kansas City Chiefs to replace Trent McDuffie and will be coached up in that defense. Has produced plenty of great players over the years. The Miami Dolphins take Keldrick Falk, D-end out of Auburn. Very raw, but has a lot of the physical tools that you need in order to be a successful D-end. Now, his bend, if for anyone who did watch the combine drills, not very good. He's 6'6", almost 280 pounds. He is huge. He is very athletic. He can generate a lot of power, but he's a very raw prospect. This is a great spot for a team that just lost their edge rusher to Buffalo to take one that, again, doesn't need to be the best edge rusher in the world, but he can develop over a few years to, again, replace the likes of Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb that are no longer on this roster for Miami. So I don't hate this pick. It's more of a upside pick in my opinion, right? When you're as bad as Miami is, taking an upside player like Falk that if he hits could be really, really good, but he also does have a pretty wide range of outcomes to where he could kind of struggle. So I do think there is some upside here. I don't hate the pick. 30, Keldrick Falk to the Miami Dolphins when they traded the pick from Denver. And the New England Patriots select KC Concepcion, baby. We already got Romeo Dobbs. We got Pop Douglas, We got Booty. We got Hendo. We got Ramondre. We got Drizzy Drake. And now we got KC Concepcion. Wow. Instantly upgrades the slot. He could be the wide receiver 2 for this offense out the gate. I'd be curious if he'd start slow or not, depending on how quickly they work him into the offense. But they obviously have Kyle Williams, Concepcion as kind of their young 2 receivers while adding Dobbs. They have Butte. They have Hunter Henry still. So it would be a good pick. It would bolster an offense that desperately needs wide receiver help. He's a dynamic playmaker, and I do think Concepcion can help this offense in a lot of different ways. GMGP, 7 goal ring. Shout out to you. Longtime viewer of the show. Appreciate you tapping in. Thank you, my friend. Happy to see you here. And to close out this mock draft, the Seattle Seahawks take Colton Hood, cornerback out of Tennessee. 20 picks after Jamal McCoy came off the board. Another Tennessee corner closes out round 1 of this mock. Seattle did lose a corner in free agency, but I do think Hood would be a great selection here. So thank you to everybody for tapping in. We went a little bit over an hour here. I do appreciate everyone that decided to show up because even without Ray, we still like to have a good time. We like to have some fun. I appreciate everyone for tapping in. And most importantly, Monday morning, wake y'all asses up, baby. Wake up, because we are going to have a big show with Mr. GQ coming back. So let me know what you thought of Mel's mock draft. Let me know what you think of Jaylen Waddle being traded to Denver and Justin Fields being traded to the Kansas City Chiefs. Could he be the difference maker for the Chiefs in 2026? Thank you, everybody, for tapping in. Make sure you like and subscribe for all the future content that we drop on the channel. And I will see you guys on Monday. I'm out. Peace.